Find a comfortable position. Let your body relax. Take one slow breath in and let it go. There is nowhere you need to be right now. Nothing to do. Just rest and let the story carry you gently away. You are about to fall asleep. And before you do, I want to tell you about the most honest relationship with death in the medieval world. Not the most comforting, not the most elaborate, the most honest. Most cultures in history have used death ritual primarily as a message to the living. Here is what you should fear. Here is what you should hope for. Here is what behavior will be rewarded and punished after you are gone. The Vikings used death ritual differently. Their funerals were not primarily about the afterlife. They were about the life that had been lived, about making visible one final time exactly who this person had been, what they owned, what they did, what they were capable of, who loved them. The grave was a portrait. And what archaeologists are still finding in those graves 1,200 years later keeps rewriting everything we thought we knew. Tonight we go to the Viking funeral, the ship burial, the grave goods, the 9 worlds and what waited in each one of them. And we find out what a culture that did not look away from death understood that we are still learning. Close your eyes, take a breath. The story begins at the water's edge. Let me start with the Arab traveler again. Ahmad ibn Fadlan, the man who gave us our most detailed description of Norse personal grooming, also gave us the most detailed eyewitness account of a Viking funeral ever written. He witnessed it in 922 CE on the Volga River in Russia. A Norse chieftain had died. The preparations took 10 days. First, the chieftain's possessions were divided. A portion was kept by his family, a portion was set aside for his grave, and a portion was used to purchase mead and food for the funeral feast. Then a young woman, a slave, volunteered to die with him. Ibn Fadlan stresses that this was voluntary, though modern scholars debate what voluntary meant in a context of social pressure and possible coercion. She was treated in the days before the funeral as a person of high status. She ate and drank as she wished. She was dressed in fine clothes. On the day of the funeral, the chieftain's ship was drawn up onto the shore. His body was placed in a tent on the deck. Around him, his weapons, food and drink, his horse, his dog, 2 cattle, a cockerel, a hen, everything he would need. Then the young woman went to each of the men present and said, "Tell my master that I did this for love of him." The funeral fire was lit. The ship burned. Ibn Fadlan, watching from a distance, asked his Norse interpreter what the smoke meant. The interpreter said, "His Lord has sent him a wind." When it was over, they built a mound over the ash. They set a wooden post at the center with the man's name carved on it. Ibn Fadlan wrote, "I have never seen anything more wonderful." Stay by the water a little longer, and let me tell you why it was a ship. Of all the objects a Norse family owned, the ship was the most valuable and the most meaningful. It was months of labor, oak felled and split and shaped, iron rivets forged one by one, a sail woven from wool that took a household the better part of a year to prepare. A ship was wealth on a scale most families could never assemble. To burn one or bury one was to give away a fortune in a single afternoon. And they did it anyway, because the ship was not only wealth, it was the thing that had carried them across the open sea to new shores, to trade and home again. It was the vessel of every important journey a Viking ever took, and death was understood as the most important journey of all. So you gave the dead a ship, not a symbol of a ship, a real vessel, or a real outline of one laid in stone, so that the shape of a ship cradled the body in the earth. The message was simple and complete. You are going somewhere, and you should not have to walk. There is a tenderness in that, underneath all the iron and fire. The same people who crossed oceans in open boats could not bear the thought of someone they loved making the final crossing on foot, alone, unequipped. So they gave them the best thing they had. They gave them the way across. Let that settle. A dark ship on dark water, waiting. It is not frightening, it is the most natural thing in the world. Here's what the archaeology adds to this picture. Because Ibn Fadlan described a single funeral for a single chieftain in a specific place and time, the archaeological record shows us the range. Norse burial practices were not uniform. They changed across time, across region, across social status, and across individual family tradition. Some people were cremated, burned in or with their ships or possessions, the ash then interred in a mound. Some were buried inhumated, laid in the ground, sometimes in a boat shape outlined by stones, sometimes in an actual boat, sometimes in a simple wooden coffin or wrapped in cloth. Some graves are extraordinarily rich. The Oseberg ship burial, discovered in Norway in 1904, contained a Viking ship 67 feet long, inside which were two women, a queen or high-status woman in her 60s, and a younger woman who may have been her companion or servant. Around them, sleds, a cart, beds, kitchen equipment, textiles of extraordinary quality, and the remains of 15 horses, 4 dogs, and an ox. The Oseberg burial is one of the richest finds in European archaeology. It is also the burial of women. The wealth and care and scope of the burial are not in any way diminished by the gender of the people interred. Other graves contain only a single brooch and a few personal items. The range from Oseberg to the simple farm burial is enormous. But the principle is consistent. The grave represents the person. You bury them with who they were. There is a word worth holding on to here, because it tells you how the Norse thought about what survives a person. The word is orðstír. It means roughly the reputation of a person after death, the trail their name leaves once they are gone. In one of the most quoted passages of Norse poetry, from the Havamal, the sayings attributed to Odin himself, the verse runs like this: "Cattle die, kinsmen die, you yourself will die. But one thing never dies, the reputation of the one who has earned it." Sit with that for a moment, because it is the quiet engine underneath everything we are describing tonight. The Norse were not, on the whole, banking on a paradise. Their afterlives were uncertain, plural, often gray. What they could control, what they could build with their own hands across a lifetime, was the memory they left behind. The story that would be told at the fire after they were gone. So the funeral was not only a farewell, it was the first telling of that story. The grave goods, the ship, the mound raised where everyone could see it, all of it was the family saying, out loud and in iron and earth, here is who this person was, and here is the name we will carry forward. You're part of someone's orðstír already, whether you have ever thought of it that way. The people who will remember you are deciding slowly, across years of small moments, what your name will mean. The Norse simply made that truth visible once, at the water's edge. Let the thought go soft now. A name carried forward, a story told by firelight. Nothing to do but rest. Now let me tell you about Valhalla and Hell and the other destinations. Because the Norse afterlife was not a single place. It was, like the Norse cosmos, a system. The most famous destination is Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain, where warriors killed in battle were brought by the Valkyries. 840 warriors, feasting and fighting each day, preparing for Ragnarok. Valhalla was not the destination for everyone. It was specifically for warriors who died in battle. It was a military afterlife, a warrior's reward. Most people did not go to Valhalla. Most people went to hell, not the Christian hell, not a place of punishment. Hell in Norse mythology is simply the place where the ordinary dead go. It is ruled by a figure named Hel, daughter of Loki, and it is described as cold and quiet and somewhat gray. Not pleasant, not unpleasant, simply there. There was also Helgafjell, the holy mountain. For many Norse families, particularly in Iceland, the dead went to the family's sacred mountain, a nearby hill or peak associated with the lineage, where they continued to exist, watching over the living, accessible through certain rituals. And there was Folkvanger, the field of the people, where the goddess Freya received half of all those who died in battle. Odin got the other half for Valhalla. Freya, by this accounting, received as many warriors as Odin. She is not, in this respect, a minor figure. The Norse afterlife was plural, contested, and negotiated through ritual. Your destination depended on how you died, who you were, what your family believed, and which gods you had cultivated relationships with. This is not confusion. It is theological complexity. The recognition that a single afterlife destination is probably too simple a model for the variety of human lives. Let your breathing slow, and let me walk you into Valhalla for a moment, because the picture of it is stranger and gentler than people expect. We imagine it as endless war, and in a sense it is. The chosen warriors fight all day on the plain outside the hall. But here is the detail the sagas insist on. Every evening, the wounds close, the slain rise, the ones who were cut down stand up whole, and they all go inside together, friend and former foe, to a hall roofed with golden shields, and they eat and drink until they sleep. The boar Surimnir is cooked each day and made whole again each night, so there is always enough. The mead never runs dry. The fighting, in the end, is not really about killing. It is about being fully alive, testing yourself completely, and then being healed completely, and then sitting down to eat with everyone, every single night, forever. It is, when you look closely, a vision of a day perfectly spent. Effort and repair, struggle and feast, company in the fire-lit dark at the end of it. The Norse warrior's heaven was not rest from life. It was the best day of life, lived again and again, with nothing held back and nothing lost. And for those who did not go there, the farmers, the mothers, the craftspeople in quiet hell or on the family's holy mountain, there was still this: they were not gone. They were simply elsewhere in the same wide system, reachable, remembered, part of the household still. Let the hall grow dim. The shields on the roof catch the last of the firelight. Everyone has eaten. Everyone is safe. Sleep is moving through the long benches like a tide. You are settling. The fire is warm. The mound by the water is dark. Let me tell you about the grave goods, because what people choose to be buried with is one of the most honest acts in human culture. In a simple farm burial in Norway, a man was interred with his tools: a plane, a chisel, and adze, the tools of a carpenter. Not weapons, not coins, the tools of his work, the things his hands had known, the implements through which he had shaped the world. This is his self-portrait. This is who he said he was in the moment of his burial. A woman in Sweden was buried with her loom weights and spindle whorls. the tools of textile production, which in the Norse world was a skilled craft of significant economic value. She was a textile maker. She wanted to be known as one. A merchant in Hedeby was buried with his scales, a healer with her herb chest, a warrior with her horse. Each grave says, "This is what I did, this is what I was, this is the shape of the time I spent here." There is something extraordinarily moving about this, viewed across 1,200 years. These people are still telling you who they were. The grave was their last message, and it has been preserved for over a millennium, and it still says the same thing it always did. Here's the curiosity that will not let scholars sleep. In the Oseberg burial, among the extraordinary wealth of goods, there were found traces of cannabis in a small pouch near the older woman's body. Cannabis, in Viking Age Scandinavia, used, based on later sources, as a pain reliever and possibly as part of the ritual preparation for death, a way of making the transition easier. The use of cannabis as medicine is currently one of the most rapidly growing areas of pharmaceutical research. Dozens of countries have legalized or are considering legalizing it for medical use. The conversation is framed as new, as a modern shift in understanding. The woman in the Oseberg mound used it 1,000 years ago. Her healer prepared it for her. It was placed with her for the journey. Nothing about the human relationship with plants is new. Only the institutional permission to acknowledge it is new. There's one more thing in these graves that I want you to carry into sleep, and it is the smallest thing of all: food. Again and again, archaeologists open Norse graves and find the remains of a final meal: a joint of meat, a bowl that once held porridge or stew, bread, sometimes a pot still arranged as if set down gently a moment ago beside a person who would never eat again. Think about what that means. In the middle of grief, in the cold, with the whole community watching, someone took the time to prepare a meal and place it in the earth. Not because the dead were thought to be hungry in any simple way, but because feeding someone is the oldest act of love there is. It is what you do for an infant, for a guest, for someone you cannot bear to send away empty. The Norse fed their dead. The last gesture, after the ship and the weapons and the carved comb, was often just this: "Here is something to eat on the way. We made it for you. We could not keep you, but we would not let you leave hungry." 1,000 years later, the bones of that meal are still in the ground, and they still say the same thing they said the day they were placed there. Love reduced to its plainest form. A bowl set down in the dark for someone who has gone ahead. You do not need to hold any of this tightly. Let it rest in you, soft and warm, like a fire that has burned down to its steady heart. Let me tell you about the mound itself, because the burial mound, the haugar, was not a place to put the dead and forget about them. It was a place where the dead continued to be present. Norse families built their mounds on their own land, deliberately visible from the farmstead. The ancestor in the mound was considered to still be there, still connected to the family, still interested in its fortunes. In certain circumstances, the dead in their mounds were dangerous. They could rise as Draugr, the undead, if they were disturbed or if their burial had been improper. The Draugr was not a zombie in the modern sense. It was a dead person who was still too present, too unwilling to be gone, too attached to the things they had left behind. The rituals of burial were partly about honoring the dead and partly about helping them go, ensuring they were complete, ensuring nothing was left undone that might keep them tethered. The door to the afterlife had to be fully open. The family had to fully let go. The grave goods were not just gifts, they were release. Here is your horse, here are your weapons, here is your comb. You do not need to come back for them. You have everything, you can go. This is grief technology, practical, physical, embodied grief management. The act of placing objects in the grave was the act of accepting the permanence of loss. You are very deep now. The mound is by the water, and the water is still. Let me give you the last image. A family stands around a mound in Norway. The year is 920. The woman inside has been dead for 3 days. The ship that was her grandmother's and her grandmother's grandmother's is gone now, burned, the ash beneath their feet still warm. They are saying the last words. Not prayers, exactly. The Norse did not have a priestly class conducting funerals the way later medieval Christians did. This is family. These are their own words, addressed to a person they love, who is now somewhere they cannot follow. One of the children places a small comb at the edge of the mound. A personal item, not the great grave goods, just something that was hers, that the child cannot keep without grief, that feels wrong to throw away. It goes into the earth with her. 1,200 years later, an archaeologist with a fine brush uncovers it. Antler, fine-toothed, carved with interlaced patterns along the spine. She picks it up carefully, makes a note, bags it, photographs the context. She does not know whose it was. She does not know about the child who placed it there, or why, or what it cost to let it go. But the comb is there. It has been there the whole time, holding its place, waiting to be found. The love that placed it has survived 1,200 years of winter. That is the teaching of the Norse burial. Not that death is not real. They never pretended it was not real. Not that the afterlife is guaranteed to be pleasant. They were fairly honest about the range of options. The teaching is that a life well lived leaves marks. In the grave goods that say who you were. In the children who stand at the mound and cannot quite let go. In the comb that keeps its place in the dark for 1,000 years, as patient as the woman who carved it. You will not be remembered by a monument. Most people are not. But the marks you leave in the people around you, in the daily acts of care, in the tools of your trade, in the things that are yours so completely that they have to be buried with you, those last longer than stone. The Norse knew this. They designed their funeral practices around it. A grave is not a place to be forgotten. It is a place to keep being seen. And the other threads of this world are here. The mythology that shaped their understanding of where the dead go, the healers who prepared the body and the herbs, the merchants who built the networks their wealth came from, the warriors who earned the burial and the ship. All connected, all part of the same world. But for now, you sleep. The mound is by the water. The water is still. The stars are out over the fjord. Somewhere in the dark, the dead are watching over the farms that were theirs. They are not unhappy. They are simply there as they always were, as they always will be. Part of the land